Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This is episode 109, and I, for one, am feeling very rested and very in tune with myself right now because I was able to sleep in a little bit.
Yes.
It's weird because it's still dark out, and I don't know about you. We were texting probably about 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit sooner,
Yep.
somewhere around that range. And that's like sleeping in at this point.
Absolutely.
Usually by 6 a.m. we have our workout done.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I'm getting showered, ready for work.
It's amazing how alert and well rested I feel without any stimulant intervention.
Yes.
I just feel like
I haven't had.
very, very, and part of that's emotional because of the fact that it's Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked on the past couple episodes about how we like Saturdays, and especially for me, it's a big production day without having things. It's a break in routine production. So like super busy throughout the week, doing the same things at the same times, at the same places, on the same days. On Saturdays, however, that's where I get freedom to catch up on all the things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I always wake up pretty energized on Saturday, regardless of sleep. So maybe there were some emotional, mental
Right.
things at play making me energized, but hopefully you feel well rested like I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter stayed at her grandmother's house last night, so I stayed up and worked on the house for a while. We're trying to get everything ready for the holidays.
Uh-huh.
All the family coming in. So.
Yep.
And, but yeah, I didn't stay up too late. I actually slept, and here we are.
Yeah, literally family coming is the only reason why I like Christmas at all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm obviously not a fan of the snow or the cold weather. I don't like traveling because it's a break in routine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like presents and the formalities that come along with it. I just really like seeing my family, which is nice. I actually had the opportunity to see my mom and grandma last night after work, which was nice. Brief, but nice.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one opportunity to see family that people tend to cherish the most. That or Thanksgiving, of course.
Right.
But at least with my family right now, we're so dispersed and everybody has their own families in a sense within those two that It's hard for everybody to kind of navigate their way back home where we can all see each other for Thanksgiving. And especially from my perspective, because with me at school and at the gym, the break is extended for Christmas more so than a day or two for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So Christmas, I really like seeing everybody in my family. But other than that, I'm really not a big fan of the holidays, and I'm going to be thankful when it's over. I don't know if that makes me Grinch-like or not, but.
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to hang the Grinch badge on it, but.
And then you have to, I'm going to play that role one more time. And then considering it's the end of the year,
Yeah.
we have some things to look forward to. And I say that in jest and sarcastically with New Year's resolutioners now coming to the gym, which
Yeah.
you and I are both on the same page with that, though. It's kind of a nuisance as far as gym crowdedness goes and logistics, like trying to
Right.
find the machines that you're going to use, the weights that you're going to use when there's double the amount of people in. But I know for a fact, because you and I have talked about it before, we're both on the same page in terms of how we view those people, and we're genuinely happy for them.
Yeah,
And we like people who make those decisions.
It's a legitimate opportunity for me and you and for both of us, honestly, to what's the word I want to look for here? To pick people to help. You know what I mean? Like, if you see somebody that you see struggle and that's new, I always try to help them. Like, try this, or try that, or what brought you in? You know what I mean? Like, ask questions, and then whenever I stop seeing them, I always reach out and say, "Hey, man, where you been?" Try to keep that encouragement going.
Well, the way that I look at it is most of the most valuable information that has been bestowed upon me throughout my training career and my pursuit of learning more about exercise and nutrition has always been free.
Yeah.
Like, there have been some that I've paid for. For example, working with my coach, Austin, who has bestowed a ton of knowledge on me. And then previous coaches that I've worked with, like Ben Pekulski, who I worked with for a while, for a few shows. Jack Sullivan, who was my first coach, who kind of got me into bodybuilding and prepped me for several shows as well. So I've gotten a ton of information from them, and I'm not saying that that's not valuable, because you can't put a price on the things that they've taught me, all in their own unique ways. But a lot of the information that I've gotten has been for free, either via social media platforms or me seeking it out on the internet by myself and trying to decipher good information from bad information, and then trial and error, which in a sense is free as well. So it's kind of like you have almost like a civic duty to kind of, I don't know, pass along that information to other people. And I know that it seems to me that some of the best people in terms of success in the fitness industry are kind of the same way. Like they like passing on info. So I think that that's really important when it comes to New Year's resolutioners, because a lot of times they seem to be newer people that have limited experience.
Yes.
So I think that it's important to, but you also have to walk that fine line of not offering advice when it's not asked of you, because that's one thing that I'm pretty adamant on too. Not that I don't want to give advice, but I just think that it's almost like a little, it can come across as rude when you're giving someone advice that doesn't want
pushy.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean. And, you know, when I took the job at the fire station for the fitness coordinator, I recognized that I was coming off pushy, and I dialed it back a lot, almost to where I wasn't saying anything, and I was just doing my thing. And about 3 or 4 months went by, and then people started asking more questions.
Yeah.
Because I stopped pushing. So, like, you almost push somebody into a hole if you start, pushing on them too hard.
Well, I think there's, like, resistance there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you push someone, they have a tendency to push back and not want to do whatever you're trying to get them to. There's like resistance, fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
So you have to go about it, and every person's different on how you approach it. I also think it comes across as self-righteous and very conceited, almost like you know more than the other person.
Right.
Oh, you have to do it this way, or hey, even if you word it nicely, there's still that interpretation that could happen of, oh, this guy's telling me what to do because he thinks he knows more than me, which is certainly never the case and never how you want to come across. But some people can interpret those things differently. So I'm more than gracious enough, I think, with my time, but I only give it when asked. I'm not going to try to make suggestions when suggestions aren't asked for, unless there's a high degree of comfortability, like it's you or one of the other trading partners or something. Like I would finally do that. But someone I don't know or someone I don't have a very good relationship with, I personally just wouldn't feel comfortable asking or offering advice to them if it wasn't requested first,
Right. And it's, it's kind of a shame that there are people that, like, because I don't know how to say it. Most of the time, or not most of the time, there's a lot of people that do have kind of malicious intent, that do prey on making people feel like crap.
Yeah.
Oh, I know way more than you. This is what you need to do. If you want to have success, do what I tell you. If not, just do your thing. Mm-hmm. But there is people out there. We're not the only two that honestly want to give as much advice as possible.
Yeah.
We're not the only two, but there are way fewer of people like us than there are of the pushy ones.
And that's why we've always had hesitancy with the podcast too. Mm-hmm. And I know we repeat this all the time, but that was something that you and I were mindful of and really hesitant with, just apprehensively talking about success, because we didn't want people to think that this was an informative podcast from our perspective.
Right.
We provide the entertainment. The guests have been the ones that provide the information. Right. We're not trying to give, maybe we give advice in the sense of things that work for you and I, but I don't think I hope that we don't come across as saying like we're the successful people and we're trying to teach you how to do it.
No.
It's more just us kind of being on a journey with our listeners and showing them, hey, we don't really know any better, but we're trying to figure this thing out, and I feel like we're getting better and better, which that's the other reason why I always get excited for the end of the year, Christmas aside, of course. I look forward to December, January, mainly for the fact that it provides reflection.
Yeah.
And I look back and say, what did I do this year? And there's been conversations that I've had with myself that suck.
Mm-hmm.
Like really suck. Like internal dialogue that I've had where it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why did you not do this? Like you said at the beginning of the year, you were going to do this, that, and the other.
Right.
And look at what you've done. So one thing that I want to do too, as we approach closer within the next couple of weeks, I want to go back and listen to our New Year's resolution episode and actually by myself in a quiet room with nothing, no other focus other than that episode, listen to it and then revisit it for when we have our New Year's episode again, just to make sure that I was true to myself, because what kind of person would I be if I came on here on a weekly basis and didn't live out what I was doing?
Right. And otherwise, likewise, I'd like to do the same. I'd like to listen to that episode again and revisit and I like what you said with like in a dark room, by yourself, isolated from other stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can like really almost go back. You can almost go back to when we were talking about whatever we were talking about. And I want to see, like you said, I want to see where I'm at. And if I didn't do what I said I did, it's put it in gear and figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like refocus and maybe not change my resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I didn't check the boxes, then I haven't checked them boxes. There's no reason to add more boxes.
Now, there could be a discussion to be had about why. So there's two ways you could look at it. So if you have 3 goals that you wanted to hit and you only hit 2 of them, and I don't want to say only hit 2 of them, because accomplishing 2 of a year-long goal is pretty impressive, I would think.
Yeah.
Depending on the magnitude and the parameters and how big of a goal it was. But if you set to accomplish 3 things over the course of the entire year, so 365 days, they're going to be big goals, and you accomplish 2 of them, that's awesome.
Right.
But like, look at the 3rd one that you didn't accomplish. So you're suggesting that it may be beneficial to leave that goal because you haven't hit it yet.
Yeah.
The one discussion that would have to be had then is, what are you going to do differently this year? Like, why didn't you hit it? So was it a time thing where you spread too thin because you were focused on the other 2? Which in that case, if you keep that 3rd one, great, because those other 2 are out of the way. Now it lets me focus on the 3rd. Was the goal unrealistic? Because sometimes, or conversely, were the other 2 that you did accomplish too realistic? Were they too easy?
Yeah.
Because that's why goal setting gets tough.
And that's what I was thinking too. Was honestly being like hyperly honest with myself, like with those goals and with what we set for this past year, I should say. And then go back through this year's episodes and use the tools to build the roadmap to, maybe reinitiate the same goals from this past year, for next year, but using the tools that we've learned along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Because your path or the roadmap or that you have drawn up to accomplish them last year, I'm assuming it's going to look drastically different than
absolutely
the roadmap. And I see that with clients. Like for me personally, when I develop plans for people, obviously there's consistency in terms of how I write plans and what I do from a nutrition standpoint with my athletes and my clients, because there's philosophies that I believe in. Whereas now, a year later, I've changed some things. I've changed how I strength program. I've changed my exercise program philosophies. I've changed how I communicate with people. So there's a lot of little changes and a lot of big changes.
Yeah.
So I think that, you're right. Maybe reprogramming your plan to reach the goal. And you and I are both big on reverse engineering long-term goals. Because I would say that I favor short-term goals significantly more than I favor long-term goals, because the short-term goals will eventually yield the long-term goals, but if you focus on long-term, you may not hit the short-term.
Right.
So the short-term goals may be different to get to the long-term goals. And like I was saying, you and I both like reverse engineering, where we figure out what the long-term goal is first and then work backwards in stages, ideally making it objectifiable or measurable. So if you have a goal that you want to get on a bodybuilding stage in 3 years, okay? Well, so now what we need to do is we need to map out a little bit of, and obviously there's going to be ebbs and flow with nutrition and muscle gain and fat loss, but how much weight do we need to lose in order to get there? Okay, well, we have the course of this amount of time. Let's cut it this amount of pounds per month, and then that translates to X fraction of a pound per week or whatever it is,
right.
And then you kind of diagnose or dissect it, I guess would be a better term. You're dissecting what your goal is and breaking it apart and itemizing it in a very small amount.
Right.
And I try to do that with everything, just try to stay focused on the workout and not looking ahead to what the next meal is, what the next this is, what the next that is. Because I have a tendency to do that, and I always suck when I do it.
Right.
So if I'm eating a meal and I'm thinking about what I have to do after the meal. Like, oh, I got to upload and edit the podcast. And I'm like starting to upload and edit the podcast instead of having that meal. Well, then that meal's just sitting there and I'm not eating it, which delays the digestion, which overlaps to the next meal that I'm not hungry. So I push that one back. And then it's kind of like the domino effect. If one thing doesn't go perfect, not even perfect, if the one thing doesn't go well, then there's almost like a catastrophic fallout that happens because of that.
Right.
Like everything else kind of sucks the rest of the day, either meals or whatever. So that's why I've been trying to continuously remind myself, if you're doing something right now, do that something right now.
Yes.
Don't focus on other things. Hence, when we talked about reviewing our last year's episode, the New Year's resolution episode, where we talked about what our New Year's resolutions are going to be, saying dark room, quiet place,
Yep.
no one around, because I know that I could easily get distracted. Like I do that a lot. Like there's times when I'll have to read something, not something I want to read, but something that I have to read, and I have to read it 3 times because the first 2 times I catch myself like thinking about other stuff. And I'm not really focusing on what I'm reading. And it's like, I know how to read, I know how to comprehend what I'm reading, but for some reason my brain's just aloof and elsewhere, and I'm not even paying attention to this right now. And I hate that.
I've taken a different road for years on that topic too. If I'm doing something and I do it twice, and both times I get distracted from it, I just move on to another task.
Yeah.
And I don't like that now. So, because I realized that that's almost like an out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was giving myself an out. So I've stopped. I've started doing what you're saying, where even if I do have to read it 3 times, or 4, or 5, I'm going to read it until I get it, because otherwise, I'm giving my brain or my body an out.
And it almost seems like for me, when I am hyper-focused on a myopic thing, like singularly focused on one thing, It seems like I do a better job of accomplishing more versus multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that one of the proverbial strategies for time management is multitasking, doing multiple things at once so you're accomplishing a lot more. I feel like, for me personally, and there's instances where this is not true, but for me personally, most of the time, I feel like that's more inefficient. I feel better when I can do one thing, get it done as efficiently as possible. So very, very quickly and very well done, because it has all my focus, and then move on, versus spreading my focus thin, trying to do 2 or 3 things at once. I kind of came to know myself a little bit better in that sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you're putting more of your time and effort and focus into one thing at a time.
Like, and there's also something to be said, I think, about what type of person you are if you do that, and how much respect you can get from others. And maybe I'm just twisting that because a lot of my time is directed towards other people.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some almost like a respect factor that comes with someone who is very focused on the task, the here and now. A good example, the other day I was training one of my clients, and I'll make this kind of a Reader's Digest version. But I was training one of my clients, and someone had come and wanted to talk to me about training for their student athlete. And the front desk worker at the gym came and asked if I would have a couple of seconds, said that the individual said it wouldn't take long, she just wanted to touch base, and I said that she can either wait 45 minutes till the training's done, or I'll get her contact information and get a hold of her at a later day, because right now that I have training and this person is paying for training, therefore I'm not going to break, even if it's in between sets, because there's still coaching and discussions that happen in those time periods. So in between sets, we're kind of giving cues and strengthening technique and talking about, hey, on that 3rd rep, you got a little bit out of line there. Look like core tightness gave way a little bit. Make sure you're bracing on that set. Things like that happen. So I just told her, or told him, to relay the message that I appreciate her stopping by, but right now my focus is on this person and this person only. Get a hold of her when I'm done. That's what I need to do. And we've talked, you and I have talked on multiple episodes about trying to make everything like that, even if it doesn't involve someone else. Heck, especially if it involves you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I don't have time for this discussion right now. I'll touch base with you later. Got some things I need to take care of.
That's okay.
Yeah. That tends to be me on Saturdays, because Saturdays are the days, again, I don't have a set schedule. So because of that, it's easier to get off track.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have all these things that I need to accomplish, and I could very easily accomplish only 50% of them if I see myself talking a little bit more at the gym, or if I'm on the phone with someone in the car. Like I try to minimize my time spent when I'm just on the phone, because that is something that you could and should multitask. Like driving, I don't want to just drive. I'd like to be doing something active when I'm driving in terms of accomplishing things. So I'm trying to be on the phone with clients and stuff when I drive. So when I get to my destination, do I sit there and continue to talk, or do I say, hey, I'm where I need to be, gotta go, peace?
Right.
So Saturdays are the days that I can kind of get out of alignment with that. But anyway, I think that's a great place to go to a commercial break. We'll talk about some training updates, because I have some things that I want to share that are kind of not groundbreaking, but I think worth mentioning. So let's go to a quick commercial break, and we'll talk more about our respective training updates when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram, and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. Prior to the break, Justin, you and I were talking about delving into some quick training updates, and I said that I had something, I don't want to use that word substantial. I'm always hesitant. It's substantial to me, but like I hate saying that, because I know that other people really don't care to a large degree what I do with my life. Like some people will think it's interesting, but it's not like other people's lives are altered by my life-altering decisions, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think about it a little different, because I feel like if somebody's listening to us, it does matter.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're taking time out of their day to listen to, two meatheads talk, not that you're just a meathead, but you know what I mean?
No, truly, fundamentally at the root of it, I am.
Yeah, two meatheads just talking about life and how we relate it to the gym and what we do and all that. There are legitimate people that take their time out of their day to listen, so that we obviously must have some level of importance.
So that said, hopefully this comes across as important to someone other than myself, but I have reached out to my coach, Austin Stout, who I've worked with for a couple years now, on and off, more on than off, but there's been some periods where I've kind of gone and done my own thing for a while. Well, kind of hit a couple month period where he and I kind of went separate ways. Strictly, the ball was in my court. I just didn't check in very regularly and was kind of a chaotic situation with different things that I was doing, and talked about it before, where I kind of let myself fall to the wayside in terms of where my focus was. Well, when I started getting back focusing for myself, the first thing I needed was to create time for myself and create like a system where I could meal prep everything more efficiently and do all this stuff. Once I felt like I was pretty well established in that area, and it's like, okay, I feel like I'm ready to take the next step, I reached out to Austin and said, hey, let's do this again. And what we've decided, and this was my determination, and he is game for it, because he lets, obviously, I'm paying him, so he gives me a lot of leeway and freedom with what I do and how I do it and all that stuff. Determined that we're going to do Mr. Ohio in 2023 is going to be the next show. So that gives me, it's almost the end of 2021. Mm-hmm. So effectively, we can say it's 2022, right? I've got 3 weeks. So it's the start of, less than that. Week and a half almost. 2 weeks. So you could say it's 2022 right now. That gives me a full year of off season. And then the next year, 2023, I believe the show is in the fall. That will give me several months of kind of recomping into transitioning into a prep.
Nice.
So that's where we're going to go. We haven't planned out that far, because there's one thing to reverse engineer, but it's another thing to reverse engineer 2 years in advance,
Right.
or a year and a half in advance, because that's so far out that there are so many things that are going to take place between now and then. So the focus now is just getting back on consistency. So consistency with my nutrition, because that's the thing is my nutrition was always good, even when I wasn't working with Austin and I wasn't training to be a bodybuilder, but it wasn't what a bodybuilder needed. So I always eat very, very clean. I would always eat very healthy, so to speak, and check all the boxes that I needed to check for living a very healthy lifestyle, looking good, and having great performance. But when it comes to bodybuilding, where you need to track and be a lot more specific with food intake and very, very measured with your approach and everything, that was something that I was lacking a little bit. So now it's a matter of establishing all these bodybuilder habits and going back to my old ways of not missing meals and putting those in front of most things and then going from there. For example, with Austin this week, right now I'm doing 4 meals a day with an intra-workout shake, which has a lot of nutrition in it.
Yeah.
So you're looking at, let's say 4. Let's not count that intra-workout shake. Let's say 4 meals a day, because the days I'm not training, I'm not having the intra-workout shake. So 4 meals a day, that's 28 meals a week. And out of those 28 meals, I hit 26 of them perfectly. There were 2 meals where I had to audible a little bit based on time, which his biggest thing with me is overeat versus undereat.
Yeah.
So there are instances, and he told me that he'd like 2 or 3 free feeds or cheat meals a week for gaining size. So he was all about it and said, understandably so, try to save those meals for when you need them. He said, because let's say you restart your week mentally every Monday, and you have a cheat meal on Monday and then a cheat meal on Wednesday. Well, there's your 2 or 3 cheat meals already, and it's only been a couple days. Now, Thursday, Friday, you run into scheduling issues. Now we're kind of taking in a lot more garbage that we don't need, because then you needed those cheat meals. So he said 2 or 3 a week is definitely beneficial for someone in my position, but try to save them for when you need them.
Right.
So kind of like people who plan for Thanksgiving. Like, hey, I really want garbage, but I know Thursday's Thanksgiving, so I'm going to hold off and wait till Thanksgiving and not eat this junk food on Monday. I'm going to wait till Thursday or whatever.
Right.
So that's where I'm at, man. I'm very, very, very excited, and sent him my update on Thursday, and the update was thorough but concise at the same time, and told him I was real excited. But I also told him that it's kind of, I'm in a position where it's the honeymoon phase early, because I'm hyper motivated, because I got the show in mind, got the day picked out and all this stuff. Not the exact date, but the time frame around when it's going to happen. And now it's a matter of sustainability. So continuing to do a plan that's sustainable. So something that he and I talked about was when we make nutrition changes, I talked about the foods that I feel like I could eat more of, because ultimately that's where I've always fell short. And people who know me think it's crazy because of how much I eat. But number one, understanding how my metabolism works. And number two, understanding that the amount you need to eat to get to a certain level is insane.
Right.
Like, people kind of really, like, yeah, I eat a ton compared to a, quote, normal person, but they don't see, number one, how fast my metabolism is. Number two, how many calories I'm burning throughout the day, because I'm always on my feet, training, coaching, teaching.
Right.
And then furthermore, the fact that I need to have a ton just as a baseline. Mm-hmm. So really I have to eat a ton. So I'm talking with Austin right now about picking and choosing food items that are easier for me to increase. For example, I got away from it for a while, and I got to give Jack Sullivan, my first bodybuilding coach who we mentioned earlier, some credit, because he was the one who kind of turned me on to this cream of wheat as a carbohydrate source for me, because it's
super easy to digest.
Oh my God, dude, I love it so much. My favorite meal is meal number 2. So my second meal, I'm doing 50 grams of protein from Whey Isolate. So 50 grams of protein in a protein shake. I'm doing cream of wheat, which is, well, it was 45 grams of dry cream of wheat. Now it's 90. So I doubled it and didn't notice any issues. So that's the only food in the world that I feel like I can double and not notice it.
Yeah.
So 90 grams of cream of wheat. And before I heat it up, what I do, I've done before and after. I like having mine, what's the word? Like, not like soupy and runny, how some people
More,
do.
like thicker.
Yeah, I like mine borderline like a solid. So like kind of like really, really.
It's almost gelatinous.
Yeah, that would be the right term for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not solid or crunchy or anything.
Right.
But I put just enough water to cook it and give it some volume. Well, what I've been doing too is I also have some organic, locally harvested honey and some almond butter with that meal. So what I do is before I measure out the cream of wheat, then I squirt the peanut butter in and measure that out. I put the almond butter in, I mix it all up and then heat it, and it is freaking awesome. Like one of the only meals I've ever had, because that's the thing is when you eat so much as a bodybuilder, you're not eating so much of foods that you want to eat.
Right.
Like it's so much of stuff you don't want to eat, like chicken, rice, vegetables, fish, potatoes, all that stuff. And now I've got to the point where that second meal, I actually want that second meal.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh God. Like I'm at school thinking I cannot wait to get to the second meal.
I can't wait for my cream of wheat.
It's so good. And then there's also like some troubleshooting that goes into it too, because I've talked about this several times with my clients. I actually just commented on someone on Instagram who posted about it this morning, is sustainability.
Yeah.
That's why people fail. So Austin and I, for example, he had me doing a pre-workout meal and said the pre-workout meal ideally about 90 minutes before training. And I told him that's not feasible because I only have so much time that I can sleep. And I can't take away from the morning. I can't get up earlier and I can't go to bed later.
Right.
I mean, this is where I need to be because I'm not getting enough sleep as it is. So waking up earlier, I have to wake up an hour and a half earlier, which is completely unfeasible considering I'm only getting about 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night right now, to be transparent. And I know that's not good. And then on top of it, I'm not hungry in the morning.
Right.
I can't physically eat. Like it's almost impossible for me until I start training.
Your body wakes up.
The one day that I tried it, our first day on the plan, it was a weekend, it was a Saturday, so I was able to get up early and eat my meal before the gym, and I felt bloated and run down in the gym, and I did not like it. So what we did was the pre-workout meal, because I'm having my intra-workout drink, so it's not like I'm nutrient deprived at that point anyway. So what we did is we just bumped the meals around and so much more fluid, and I feel so much better.
Yeah.
So there's some troubleshooting that goes into it. And that's kind of just where I'm at for a training update. That was actually more detail than I wanted to go into. I just wanted to tell people, hey, I'm getting ready for a show in the future. So expect the old Charlie back. And it's funny because I have to laugh because there's people that I haven't seen for a while. And everybody talks to me very gingerly around this topic because there's people that haven't seen me for 2 years, like when I was in the off season or when I was competing. And I look different.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, are you getting ready for a show? Even though they know I'm not getting ready for a show, that's their way of saying you look a lot smaller. Because normally when you diet for a show, you lose weight. And people used to say, oh, are you not lifting anymore? Are you sick? Because your face starts getting sunken in.
Yeah.
And when they see you in a hoodie and sweatpants, you visibly look significantly smaller. Well, now they know that that's kind of like offensive to a bodybuilder. So now they're just saying, oh, are you in prep? Or are you trying to lean out or something?
Right.
Even though I'm really not, I'm just small. Yeah. And that's kind of like where they go with it. So I just think that that's funny how everybody's been like very, very careful. But like, honestly, man, like I used to get like offended. Like I remember one time, I'm sure I told this story before, one of my coworkers, I was doing something like weird. Like, I don't know, like eating liver or taking, a million vitamins or just even eating Tupperware containers full of chicken is weird for people. So I was doing something that was unorthodox compared to like normal American standards. And the coworker who I did not have a lot of professional time around because she taught in another grade level, she comes and she goes, why are you eating that? And I explained, oh, well, I'm dieting right now. And of course, when you tell that to people who don't understand, they're like, why are you dieting? You don't need to diet. You're not fat. Because that's kind of the term,
The norm.
Yeah.
Around the word.
Yeah, they think people who are fat diet and people who are not fat don't diet.
Right.
They think diet is only losing weight.
Yeah.
Where it's so much more than that. But I said, oh, I'm just dieting right now. And she said, why are you dieting? I said, well, I don't have anything planned, but I'd like to get back on stage. This is a couple years ago, I think, before I did the Mr. West Virginia. Well, she goes, get on stage? Wait, for what? And I said, well, for bodybuilding. And she looked at me. I'll never forget this. She looked at me and meant no malice or nothing rude, but she goes, you're a bodybuilder? And I looked at her and I said, well, evidently not a very good one. I guess if you can't tell, I said, not a very good one. She's like, oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't know that you competed. She's like, obviously, you have a lot of muscle. I just didn't know. And I just thought that was real funny. But I'm to the point in my life where I really don't take offense to anything.
Yeah.
Like, especially something so trivial and so just superficial like that. Like, yeah, I know I'm not as big as I used to be because I don't do the things that I used to do.
Right.
And if I do the things I used to do, I'll be as big as I used to be. So it's just like, yeah, lifestyle is different now. So, but yeah, I'm long story short of me going on that huge rant was I'm back to getting ready to compete now. Yes. And it feels good because it feels like, like when you started, restarted your fat loss journey and you're talking about going to the track and stuff and like getting to the roots of what you do. It just feels so natural for me to stay on a diet plan and do my check-ins every Thursday with my coach. And like those things, you find comfort in routine. And there's so much chaos in life, especially people like you and I who are super busy, you having a newborn. Like there's so much unpredictable in this world that I love doing things like
uniform.
Yeah. I love doing things like a check-in every Thursday because that's one thing that I know I have control over.
Keeps you honest too.
Yes.
Because if you fail one week, if you checking in consistently, it's quicker and easier to reel back.
Yes.
It's not going to get as far out of hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I just feel like there's so much comfort with me in terms of what I'm able to do when I feel like I have control of stuff. Even if it's a facade and I really don't have control. Right. Just when I feel like, oh, I have control over this situation. Even something as little as like sending an update.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know how my Thursday morning's going to go. At the gym every other week when I'm asked, because I'm Austin in the off season generally asks for progress pictures every other week, every other update. So, I'll take progress pictures at the gym. I'll get to school during my plan period. When I have some downtime, I'll send my update to coach and get those sent over. And that's just one less thing. It's funny because it's ironic. That's one less thing or one more thing to worry about. But I feel like I don't have to worry about my Thursday morning because I know what to do with my Thursday morning.
Yeah, it's planned.
Like that's what I do. Yeah,
it's a set schedule. I get it. I'm a schedule guy. I rely heavily on the plan.
That is the biggest downside, to be honest, to prep, is when those things
start to change.
Yeah, they get expedited very fast. So, like, once a week updates, great. Now, prep is it's like the radical side of structure as far as your training, nutrition, and your cardio. However, it's a little bit different because it's changing day to day.
Yeah.
So, like, I have a plan set for 2 days, and then Austin saying, okay, we're adding 10 minutes into cardio. Okay, that's 10 more minutes. Got to remember that. Hey, I need you to take this supplement at this time now, too. Okay, got to change that. Hey, we're eating 3 ounces less of potatoes per meal now. Oh, okay, got to change that now, too. So, like, hey, you got to send me pictures this afternoon. I need to see how you look tonight. So it's like, it's still
lots and lots
hyper structured, and there's significantly less margin for error, but it's so hard because they're changing all the time.
Right.
So it gets kind of chaotic, and what you have to do, or what I've found success with, is trying to maintain hyper focused without getting hypercritical.
Nice.
And hyper emotional.
Right.
So like if things don't go how they were supposed to go, me being able to sit back and say, I'll be all right.
Yeah. You have to be able to digest the setback and move on.
I've won a lot of shows, and I've never had any prep into those shows go perfectly.
Right. Well, I think that's the thing, is that nothing goes perfect.
No.
There's always, and then you kind of alluded to it earlier, if it does go perfectly, well, then it wasn't a good plan. It wasn't planned out stringently enough that it was too easy to execute. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not difficult to execute, difficult to carry out,
Was it worthwhile?
Was it worthwhile? Yeah. What are you spending your time on?
Like so I like that, because that, again, goal setting's tough because of realistic goals that you want, but they need to be hard to achieve too.
Yeah.
So like if you have a set amount of weight that you want to add to your bench press, and you do it easily every time, well, maybe you need to rethink your goals, because I think that failing at goals on occasion or just coming up short is very, very good as a learning tool.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why? So like you and I, for example, this was actually great because you and I had the exact same thing, so it was easier for us to problem solve. Up until very recently, you and I did a couple weeks worth of a strength cycle.
Yeah.
And what we were doing was, it was Wendler 531, Jim Wendler's 531 program, where we didn't max out. We just kind of assumed about where our maxes were. And then we did all of our compound lifts, our overhead press, our bench, our squat, and our deadlift off of percentages. And we talked about that past couple episodes. Well, the one day you and I go in, and the end of every each of those compound lifts, the top set is an AMRAP. So it's an acronym, as many reps as possible, AMRAP. So you do an AMRAP set with a certain percentage of your max weight, and it tells you theoretically what you should get. Like, you should get this for 8 reps.
Yeah.
And we always talk about exceeding the expectations. Chad Mays, our training partner, that's his go-to saying. He always says exceed the expectations. So if it tells us to get 8, we always try to get 9. Or if it says 13, we try to get 14 or whatever. So one of the weeks, you and I were doing our bench press day, and we both went down pretty substantially. So the weight, because we had hit all of our AMRAPs every session for every lift. Well, I forget what mine was. Mine was supposed to be like 9, and I ended up getting 5, I think. So I was like 4 reps short, or very far off of what my rep count for that day should have been. And you had essentially the same thing.
6, yeah.
And so we went back and was like, okay, why was this? Okay, well, just 2 days prior, we did a huge volume pressing workout, which obviously a little bit sore. You look at your nutrition, look at your hydration. So we kind of itemized our previous few days, like we didn't sleep as much, and went through the list. And that's not making excuses. That's the opposite. That's trying to fix the excuses.
Yeah, that's trying to learn from the failure.
Yeah, so I think that coming up short on some goals is important. And maybe we'll do that when we review the end of the year, or the beginning of the new year episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find things that we failed at and said, oh, we sucked at this. We got to make sure we fix that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So real quick, before we close up shop, since I monopolize and hog all the time like I typically do, any training updates on your end? I mean, for the listeners, I know what's going on your end because I'm training with you every day, but everything seems pretty par for the course right now in a good way.
Everything seems real good, yeah. I'm enjoying being back in the gym. I do want to start using my home gym some, just because of cost.
Oh, absolutely.
Making, what is that? Making it worth it, buying everything. So, but no, I texted you and Chad the other day, and I told you guys that you guys are probably the best dang training partners I've ever had, and because of the environment that is in with you guys when we train is just incredible.
Well, I think it goes back to, I don't want to overanalyze here, but I really think it goes back to how we started talking about the being focused on the task at hand and not trying to focus on what's coming next. And I think that this is a perfect analogy for that. I truly feel like when we train, we are so focused on who's doing the set.
Yeah.
So if it's my set of bench, you both are, cheering me on, being very vocal, touching my chest, say squeeze here. Like it's a very hands-on approach that we have. Then when my set's done, I'll take 30 seconds, 20 seconds to contemplate life and try to recover. And then we get up, and then it's Justin's turn.
The next guy's turn.
All right, now we got to focus on Justin to get him better.
Right.
And that goes back to a West Side Barbell philosophy where they said, now I got to look this up because I want to share this on the next episode because this is really important. But Louis Simmons, the founder of West Side Barbell, has some type of saying or phrase that he uses and basically tells his competitors that as a power lifter at West Side Barbell, your biggest concern is trying to make the other person better. That is your biggest concern. Not you getting better. You have to make the other person better. That's why there's an environment in there that is hyper competitive, hyper aggressive, and that's why they are the greatest powerlifting gym in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And they have hundreds of world records to show for it. So,
and I like that philosophy too, because if you think about it, if everybody in there is doing that, somebody, meaning every other person, is focusing on you.
Yeah, if you in there and you have an all-time world record in the bench press, the guy you're training with is trying to beat that record, and you're trying to push him to break that record.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if everybody does that, then everybody wins. And I feel like the three of us are kind of in a good groove right now where that's where we're at.
That's the key. Is that's what we want, is each of us to be the best.
Yep. So I think with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 109. And as always, we appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the